Hello, and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. This is where we travel the state each and every week to check in with 11 of the preeminent fishermen in their areas. They're going to keep us updated on where the fish are, how they're biting, what the bait's doing, and what the weather's been like and going to be. We'll check in and get closer with our sport each and every week. All right, let's get it started in a dream location. How about this? We're going to go to Nosara, Costa Rica, and get a quick word from where we'd all love to be while we're home worrying about this silly virus. Captain Craig, what's the word from Costa Rica?
We're blowing it up, man. The sailfish have got stronger, and they're biting harder, and we're getting more of them real close, 10, 12 miles, 13 miles out. We did get a couple Dorado, but none of those big floor sweepers. Got some nice marlins. They got not a giant blue, got a 250.
That's a good one.
And the 20-minute battle. Put the baits out. Let's get something else. Very rarely do we ever fight a marlin more than about 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Craig, I've always felt like a good wheelman's a lot more valuable than a good rod and reel man when it comes to bringing a blue marlin to the boat.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And, we're getting ready to start the big, giant yellowfin. A week before last, I talked to a client that had fished on the Explorer, and they were on a pod, and they were trolling cedar plugs. Cedar plugs and clear, pink-colored squids has been the kind of go-to for the yellowfin. And they had one up. Captain Fico told me, he said the fish was well over 250 pounds. Woo. He said it may have been over 400. Said they fought it, got it right to the boat, and the hook came out. They were just about to get the gap on it.
Oh, my goodness.
But it was March yellowfin. From the end of May through August and then again November. Last year we caught 4 yellowfin over 74 inches, probably another 10 or 12 more. I learned the technique when I was in Australia about 20 years ago. The guys in the Tasmania Bay use it, and they call it a corkscrew method. But we've adapted it for our water and our conditions and our fish. I mean, I caught a 67.5 inch down there about 3 years ago on a spinner topwater in 22 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's
how you fight the fish. But that same year, we caught a 64.5 inch, and it took us 3.5 hours to get it.
Oof.
And literally, we were trying to use it that night, and we modified that technique, and then whammo, 22 minutes.
Yep, it's getting the method down. There's no question about that.
I can't wait to try that method again myself.
Yep. I know what you mean.
The river mouth report, a couple snook. Javier said he had a really nice one. Come close. He got him up to the surface about 12, 14 feet away. He said he was a really big one. He said a nice one. And come up and shook the hook out. And tore him out with a soft mouth. But those fish down there, that clear water like it is right now, it's super, super clear. Early in the morning, you'll get a shot or two, but the fish really are a big advantage.
Low light conditions, yep.
Sometimes we'll go back and catch them in the afternoon, and the good anglers are seeing a few and losing a few and catching some smaller ones. But you know what? As soon as that rain starts in May, buddy, it's going to be game on.
Yep, I don't doubt it a bit. All right, let guys know how they can get a hold of you and make it down there to fish at Nosara Fishing.
904-591-2161 or fishingnosara.com.
Fishingnosara.com. Thank you, Craig. We'll talk with you next week.
Thanks, Ricky.
All right, buddy. It's always great checking in with Craig Sutton and hearing about paradise. But let's come back to real life. We'll start up in the northeast corner of the state with talking with our buddy, Captain David Voorhees. How's fishing in northeast Florida?
Well, I can tell you, it's sort of hit and miss in places. You talk to some captains, they did good on the Reds this week, and then you talk to other captains, and they struggled. The water clarity wasn't that great this week. We saw some dirty water move in. Myself, I sort of had one day that I struggled and turn around had one day that I did good. And I sort of checked to see what kind of bait some of these captains are using. And to me, it seems like the guys who used the cut crab this week seem to have done better than any other bait. And that was just soaking a quarter of a crab out there and letting the fish find it. Even though we saw good numbers of fish at these extremely low tides we had this week, getting them to bite was a different thing. And Captain Larry Minyard taught me something many, many years ago about springtime fishing. And he said, springtime in Northeast Florida, it's here today, gone tomorrow. I mean, these fish, one day you'll be on them. The next day, these fish, they tend to move a lot. They'll move on. I think, too, with the bite is, you need to go out there this time of year, and you better have quite an arsenal of bait. You should have everything with you, some mud minnows, some shrimp, some crabs, a little bit of everything, because you never know what these fish are going to want from one day to the next. But the trout's been spotty. I haven't heard of any really big trout yet. Still reporting some good numbers of flounder on the inshore scene. We're seeing lots of finger mullet. I think that's a good thing. I think we're going to have a real good flounder year. At least I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. Plenty of sheephead at the rocks and around the bridge pilings. And in the surf, real good numbers of whiting being caught on some fresh cut shrimp. Offshore, it just sort of been spotty also, not that good. I mean, the bottom fishing, you can get some, sea bass, but really not that much. A few sailfish. The wahoo seems to be the best thing going right now. And even that's been spotty. 1 or 2, fish per boat. Tuna's been spotty. It's just that I think this full moon sort of had things whacked up this week. And I was thinking the full moon was going to be good this week, but it really disappointed me.
Well, I like fishing before it, David. This week is usually the week coming after the March full moon is quite often not real good for me, so I wasn't shocked by it. Hey, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
I keep obsessing over this statement that Ernest Hemingway made in 1953 that he had quit offshore fishing because the tackle had gotten so advanced that the fish didn't stand a chance anymore. If you can imagine that in 1953. What has been the biggest advancement in the last, 15, 20 years that you've been fishing that has made you a much better fisherman? There's so many pieces to the puzzle, but what stands out as really turning the corner for you?
Rick, without a doubt, I'll have to say going to the braided line, and not just the braided line, but the combination of braid and fluorocarbon, the combination of those two things, it's really been a game changer for me. Anybody who grew up fishing monofilament and stuff like that, when the braid came around, it was quite a learning curve. I had a love-hate relationship with braided line. There was days I loved it and days I hated it. Now I don't say that. It's all love now. It's a full-on love affair with the braid. The type of fishing I do now with some of this deep water jigging, I couldn't see that even possible with the monofilament lines of yesterday. We pair that with some fluorocarbon, and fluorocarbon's a new thing too. And I give fluorocarbon a lot of credit because of it. Using that as my leader in the braided line, I would have to say that would be it for me, Rick.
I don't disagree. And we've also, two things have happened, David. We've learned a lot about braided line, like not to pack our spools all the way to capacity because it'll come off wrong. And braided line's gotten better. If you'll remember, we fought 9 million wind knots in the beginning of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And for the most part, we've gotten past that. I can't remember. Now, don't let me say that. It'll come back to haunt me, but I can't remember my last one now, to tell you the truth, because we've learned a little bit more how to fish it, and they've made it so it doesn't tangle as easy as it used to. But I tell you what, for an inshore fisherman, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a great statement.
When it first started coming out, I would carry a couple of rods with some monofilament and a couple of rods with braided line, just in case, because these people, I don't like that braid. I want and I'd let them fish with the monofilament. And over the years, pretty soon, the guys fishing the braid were just smoking the guys with the monofilament. Finally, I had to take say no more monofilament on the boat because the guys are getting outfished by the braid.
Right.
So now it's everything's braid on my boat, and I pair that up with some good fluorocarbon, and anything goes. I've landed 60, 70-pound tarpon with them, and it's fantastic. It is fantastic stuff.
Yep, I agree. David, thank you so much, and thank you for a great report. We'll check in with you next week if that's okay.
Absolutely, Rick, and tight lines, everybody.
You too, buddy. Seems like that waning moon kind of slowed the fish down. They didn't have the kind of aggression that they had before that moon. I don't know if that's got to do with it or what, but it wasn't as great a week in Northeast Florida than we're used to. Let's check in with East Central. Jimmy, you boys got any cobia down there?
We've got some, and depending on the day, you're either covered up with them or you can't find one. So it just kind of depends on if you've got the sunshine and calm winds. They're up, they're happy, they're following rays. The rays are feeding on the plankton. Everybody's happy. Then you have days like Monday, and Monday started off with overcast, and then it turned overcast and drizzly, which turned into overcast and rainy, which turned into overcast, rainy, and cold.
Your favorite.
My favorite.
Yeah,
I felt
Jim,
like I was in Seattle.
Jim, let me tell you what my crew learned a long time ago. I can be cold, I can be wet, or I can be tired. If I'm 2 out of 3, we're going home.
Yeah. Well, we pulled into one of the local establishments and got some clam chowder and some Bahamian fish chowder because it got to the point where we were actually shivering on the boat.
Yep.
We were actually shivering. The bite right afterwards, it happened to coincide with pretty close to high tide, and the bite at the jetties at the port was really good. There was snook, we had jacks, we had some bluefish. So I even marked some pompano. I don't know why I couldn't get on a bite. Good mixed bag. And then we decided, hey, the skies are starting to part. There's a little bit of blue up there. And so we decided we were going to run to where we had been seeing the cobia and the rays and everything the few days before. And of course, that nice, pretty blue hole, they don't call them sucker holes for nothing.
Yep. Been there.
It suckered me right in, and then it closed in and went overcast, and the wind picked back up and got choppy. The only good part of the whole day was I saved the guy from going into the surf because he was pretty close to getting capsized in the surf.
Ooh.
So let me explain something to you guys. If you're going offshore, A, fill your fuel tank up.
Yep.
B, bring the remote control for the trolling motor if you have one.
Yes.
C, if you don't have an anchor and a rope that's at least 100 feet long so that you can anchor in 30 feet of water or 25 if it's rough, get one. And D, carry a VHF with you because your cell phone will run out of juice exactly when you need it most.
Jim, the answer to that is all 4. I mean, that's all 4 of those are totally irresponsible not to do.
I'm not going to name names, but it was a bass guide running a saltwater trip.
Well, yeah, I can understand
with
that.
Customers.
Ooh.
So, and 5, don't go saltwater fishing with a bass guide.
Don't ask Ricky Riles to dunk a basketball. Don't. There's some things that just can't be done.
It's just there's some things that you have got to be prepared for. You've got to be.
The thing that always worries me, I now see all these 24 bay boats out in 300 feet of water fishing on the other side of the ledge. And of course they're single engine and they're not very high sided and such. And I think there is not one of them, because keep in mind it's 60 miles from Jacksonville to 300 feet of water. There's not one of them that has enough gas to get home if it gets nasty.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I had to run 11 and a half hours one time to get home from 60 miles offshore. So it can drain your fuel supply in a hurry. And there's absolutely not one of them that have got enough anchor line to anchor up in 180 feet of water. And we've talked about this before, but if you've been as scared as I have, let's see. I've got a sat phone. I've got an ePerb. I've got 2 VHFs. I've got a regular phone. I've got flares you can see from the space station. And I've got a 4-man life raft. I could very easily go down and die, but it's going to take something pretty powerful for me to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's that old Boy Scout motto. And when I was a kid, I used to kind of goof at the Boy Scouts, but now that I'm a charter captain, man, those guys have got it right. Be prepared for anything, Be prepared because you never know what is going to come at you. So the last cell signal that I get from him is I'm approximately here. I think that my 12-foot talon will hold me outside the surf break. And
Yikes.
Come get me if you can get here. And I'm in my 24-foot bay boat, okay? And I'm 11 or 12 miles up the coast from him. And it's 3 to 4 foot with a 1.5 to 2 foot chop on it. I'm not making yellowfin or Donzi type speed here, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
So please, people, when you go out there, please go with a qualified captain that typically fishes on the type of water that you're fishing in. And if you're doing it yourself, carry your own stuff with you and make sure everything is full. Batteries are full, fuel cells full. Don't go outside that port and you don't have a full tank of gas. Don't do it.
Yep. I got taught that lesson the easy way, in the fact that I went offshore fishing along the beach, and I knew I was only going to be about 3-4 miles south of the beach. So, and this is back in my probably early 20s. And so I didn't need to go by the gas station, fuel up, which probably means I didn't have the money anyway. But we're fishing and an absolute massive school of tarpon show up about 12 to 14 miles south of me. And I had to listen to all the boats and I couldn't go. And I said then, that's the last time that'll ever happen. And I got to listen to them releasing fish after fish after fish. And I know that I can get there, but if I do, I can't get back. Jimmy, as always, we really appreciate the report. And you may feel free to go ahead and release those cobia on up to the north. They've been there long enough now.
Well, Rick, there's bad news for me in that we didn't do very good on Monday. There's bad news for you in that the manta rays are swimming south right now.
No, turn around.
So I talked to two guys out of Sebastian, and they actually did better than I did on Monday. So
how about that?
It's one of those things where hopefully we'll keep them around a little bit longer. I mean, I don't like being stingy, but every once in a while I got to be that guy. I just have to be that guy.
Well, you could send us a few. Jeez.
Keeping them down here.
Man.
You know what's going to happen, Rick? Turnabout's going to be fair play. You know as well as I do that whenever it's time to go catch a pogie, we won't be able to find one, and you guys will be gunnel deep in them.
And you know what else? I won't care. Just so you know, when you call me and say, are they up here? I'll say, yeah, they are, and they're going to stay here. I don't care.
Yeah. Till next week, Rick. Hopefully we're all going to get out there and catch some fish. It looks like a beautiful week this week, so hopefully everybody's going to get a chance to go catch something.
I know one thing. I'm going to be doing my social distancing. I will be miles from anybody. All right, buddy.
There you go.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jimmy.
Take care.
Captain Jim Ross with a Great East Central report for us. Now we're going to move on down to one of my favorite places, Stuart, Florida, where I'll bet you Captain John Earhart has the bead on some cobia. Hello, Captain John. How we doing?
Not bad. Glad to be here.
I think we finally got a few days of calm weather. How was it for you boys?
The fishing has been phenomenal, both inshore and offshore. We'll start out with the offshore. As usual for the month of March, we're catching a lot of cobia right now. Fish are larger size by all means. We're catching 30 to 60 pounders right now.
Woo.
So there's bigger fish around. Definitely beef up your tackle if you want to get these things to the boat. If you're fishing in an area where there's a lot of shark activity, typically we're just live bait fishing. I'm using some cobia jigs. I usually always have a cobia jig ready in case, I bring a cobia up. Sometimes there may be 2 or 3 others with them. If I have that cobia jig there, one fish turns into 2, and, that's an additional fish in the boat. When you're fishing like that, it's pretty easy to get a limit.
That's an excellent point and an excellent tip for guys. This time of year, you just do not go offshore without a cobia rod ready to go.
Yeah, that's definitely going to increase your cobia catches. While we're cobia fishing, we're obviously catching a lot of lane snappers like I talked about last week. Try and keep the bigger ones if you can. We're getting a few mangroves, some yellowtails, even some nice muttons this week. So the snapper fishing has been getting better and better. So definitely have some cut bait with you, maybe some live shrimp, cut mullet, cut squid, anything like that's going to work well on a chicken rig or a long leader rig on the bottom.
Yeah, John, it's funny. I thought of you because after I told you last week that we don't see many of them up here, I had 4 or 5 the other day, and they were all good fish. They were all like 3 to 5 pound fish. I was tickled to death to see them.
Yeah, right now it's a great time to catch those lanes because they are spawning. So definitely take advantage of it. They taste great. The trolling has been a little slow offshore. We're still catching some sailfish, a lot of bonitas, a few nice blackfin tunas. The mahi have been hit or miss, but we are catching a few gaffers here and there, mostly heavy lifters like 5, 8 pounders. You might get a 12, 15 pounder here and there, but I haven't seen any big mahi yet. So I'm hoping this week or next, we might get a good mahi run in the Stuart area.
Well, that sounds outstanding. What else is going on inshore?
Inshore fishing this week, it's been phenomenal for keeper-sized snook. If you can get your hands on some live bait fish, fishing around any structure, you got to weed it out to get that slot-sized fish. But it seems like there's been a lot of 28 to 32-inch snook fishing in the St. Lucie River, the Indian River. I mean, really anywhere you go where there's some structure, if you present that bait fish properly, chances are you're going to catch snook and plenty of them. There's been a lot of Jack Crevalles mixed in and some bigger bluefish as well, too.
Sweet. Boy, it sounds like an awfully good time to be in Stuart. I guess this pretty much wraps up your sailfish season until they get together again in like June and July, right?
Yeah, maybe late May, June, July. That's when I'll start live baiting sailfish again when they show up on the 6 and the 8 mile reef. Then we can start expecting to catch 6 or 8 sailfish a trip again. Right now, it'll just be kind of 1s and 2s here and there, and take them when you can get them.
Gotcha. Thanks a bunch. Hey, John, that was a great report. We always appreciate it. We'll talk with you next week if that's okay.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you guys next week.
All right. Our thanks to Captain John Earhart from the Mayhem and the Chaos in Stuart, Florida. John's report, of course, is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, by Nosara Paradise Rentals, by Phoenix Rods, and by Young Boats. You want the best in flat spay and offshore hybrid boats? Check out youngboats.com. Let's move on down to Miami and talk to the mayor of South Beach, Captain Alan Sherman. Tell me what's going on in Miami.
I think one of the biggest things is that people are canceling charters left and right. But
yeah, I'm afraid that's true.
This virus thing has got a lot of people nervous, and they should be. But for the people that are sticking to their plans and going fishing, fishing's not been bad. The weather's definitely gotten better. We haven't had those huge winds that we were having. So a lot more guys are getting offshore. What they're finding out there have been some big bluefin tunas and some yellowfin tunas as well. These fish are passing through and hooking up and stripping reels and putting big smiles on people's faces, and a few of them have actually been caught. One bluefin was caught on a boat that was sword fishing, and then a few yellowfins have actually been caught as well, and those fish were probably about 60, 70 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not been bad. Then there's been kingfish, some of them up to about 30 pounds on the reef, and some very large dolphin, mahi-mahi, are migrating through and being caught. And those fish are out there on the blue water edge, mostly under frigate birds. So if you're out there, keep an eye out for those frigate birds because they'll help lead you to where they are. Once you get close to the birds, start throwing some ballyhoo or live threadfin herring filters if you have them to see if you can't get some hookups. There's been quite a few small blackfin tunas, and those fish have been anywhere from 200 feet out to about 400 feet. And I think most of the guys are trolling feathers way, way behind the boat. Some people put, multiple feathers on a line and get them 100 feet or 200 feet, 300 feet behind the boat and away from the prop wash, and that's working for them.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, Alan, before we get too far away from the topic of frigate birds. I have always been told, and I always refer to frigate birds as a bird that can't tell a lie. If he's circling low and dipping on the water, he ain't looking at no piece of bread, okay? I mean, he's really after action. And I've been told the reason that they are so dependable is that they actually follow the predators and wait for them to drive the bait to the surface. Have you heard that?
No, that's quite true. They don't dive on bait, so they really need something to get that bait out of the water where they have a shot at it. It's pretty hard for them to race down. They don't use their talons. They use their beaks to catch the prey.
Right.
So, they need that sailfish, that marlin or the dolphin, the mahi-mahi, to spook those baitfish schools enough to give them a shot. They also like to steal baits from the other birds, the terns.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those terns have an easier go at it, and they'll chase them down and make the bird give up the bait, and then they'll come in and snag it away from them. But what was it that you called them? A non-liar bird?
I told them a bird. I call them a bird that cannot lie. And
I call them liar birds.
Really? I'll be darned. See, now that's interesting.
More than 50% of the ones I see are not close to the surface. So you'll see them way up in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking. The further up they go, the more they're scanning out, with their eyes, trying to locate something. So you'll spot a frigate, and right away you'll start chasing them, and you could be chasing them for hours before he actually comes down to the surface to go after something. But If they get close to the surface, then you know there's something going on and you need to get over there as quick as you can.
Yeah.
And if you can find 2 or 3 birds working in an area, then you're in for a really good catch. But that's what's happening way offshore. There's been some swordfish out there. The guys swordfishing are getting some nice ones during the daytime. And, because it's calm, they're able to get out there without much difficulty. Coming in towards the beach, there's been a pretty good snook bite around the ocean piers. The guys out there, they're easily limiting out on slot-sized fish. You're only allowed 1 per person, but there's been quite a few of them to be caught on the piers and in the surf. At night, the tarpon fishing has been excellent at the inlets. Government Cut especially. Baker's Haulovers had quite a few tarpon there as well. And they're mostly catching them on the large live shrimp. And there's been some periodic shrimp runs recently, mostly on the outgoing tides. But the guys that are targeting the tarpon at night are doing really well on them. Moving into the bay, North Bay has still been a challenge. There's been some big jet crevalles up in the Haulover area. Bait fish schools are pretty scattered. The next good fishing area would be South Bay, where they're starting to see tarpon underneath the bridges of South Bay, Rickenbacker, Bear Cut, and those fish are eating crabs and big live shrimp. Bone fishing in Perth, it's been pretty good as well because it's been calmer. It's been easier to spot those fish. And then flamingo has been red hot with an abundance of redfish, snook, sea trout, and with the warmer water, the tarpon have been on fire.
Well, I tell you, if this truly is the end of wintertime and we're not going to get any more cold, there sure wasn't much to it, was there?
No, for us, definitely there wasn't. I don't think I put thermals on once this season. And normally, it's been like that for the last 2 or 3 years, but it used to be you always wore them. I would wear tops and bottoms. Haven't had to do that in ages. So, and it looks like we're done for sure. I don't know about you guys. You might see another front or two get close. I don't think we're going to see any more until next year. I
may sue the manufacturers of my foul weather gear because they clearly misled me. They told me I'd need it, and I just haven't. I've fished in jeans and a T-shirt more than I can think about this winter. I mean, it hadn't. Golly, I always love pulling on my bibs and my big heavy jacket, and for some reason, it seems like when it's cold, we're always successful. But boy, this year we just haven't needed it, Alan. We just haven't had a winter.
It's getting weirder and weirder every year.
Yeah, I know it, Cap. It's getting weirder every day now. I can't.
That's for sure. Right?
I'm going fishing. I'm going fishing on Wednesday. I can't wait to hear what the news is going to be when I hit the dock. There's no telling.
There is no telling. I'll be in Flamingo tomorrow, so I'm hoping that those fish keep biting like they have been. And we have an easy day out there.
I'm hoping it for you. I know you love being back there. Thank you so much, Alan. We'll talk with you next week.
All right, man. We'll see you then.
Thank you, buddy.
All right.
Cap Mellon Sherman with a great report from the Miami area where it seems like things really picked up. I tell you what, I'm glad I live in an ocean with bluefin tuna and giant swordfish and all this stuff that we can't stop on any tackle. I think that's just fabulous. I saw videos of the bluefins moving through South Florida this week, and it was just gorgeous to see those big old monsters. I've also seen pictures of our next podcaster, Captain Nick Stanzik, who's rapidly becoming a legend in our sport with a pomfret. Nick, what in the world is a pomfret?
It's a deep water critter. We catch a few a year, usually by the sword fishing, and they're anywhere from 15 to 25 pounds usually, and kind of looks like an alien permit. Big scales, dark in color, but neat little bycatch while you're sword fishing.
Huh. Have you eaten them?
I have. They're pretty good. Some people love them. A lot of times they have one, but we're actually going to make a mold of that one with Jay Taxidermy. That's a pretty big one. It was just under 24 pounds. We're actually going to make a mold of it, and we'll have that forever then.
Now, the last time we talked, your incredible streak of 19 straight trips with a swordfish had come to an end. Have we started a new one?
Yep, we had 2 without them, back-to-back zeros, but we got 3 in a row, and today we caught a 296-pounder. So it was an exciting one. And we had a couple swordfish yesterday and one trip before that. So
wow, how did you say 296 or 396?
296, 92-inch short length, but kind of skinny in the tail, traveling fish and migrator, 296 pounds. If he was fat, it would have been 350 plus, but it is what it is.
Man, that's a great fish. Tell me about the rest of the fleet there.
It's getting to be that springtime of year. There's a little bit of everything. not necessarily a whole lot of one thing. There's a few sails around, still a little tough, but been some yellowtail snappers, some mutton, a few dolphin. We had 9 dolphin one day, not big, schoolies, a few blackfin tunas, a few kingfish, a little mix on the reef and the wreck in the backcountry. My brother had a big tarpon. He had a 14-year-old angler from Orlando, and he wanted to catch a tarpon. He caught a 100-pounder, and he lost another one. A few other guys had a couple tarpons, so they're showing up. And then still a few smokes and red, taking away at them mangrove snappers around the island for dinner. Whatnot. So we're all hanging in there, and then just waiting to see what happens with this coronavirus thing.
Oh, I know. It's got to be costing you a lot of tourists, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've had a couple cancellations. A couple people from Scotland that fishing that they can't make it in April now. I had one in March, but the phone's been ringing up the hook at the marina. A lot of people rescheduling and postponing their trips because of it. So hopefully it gets over with soon and everybody gets back to 100% healthier, I guess.
I'm hoping in a month you and I are laughing about it and how much the overreaction was, but that's what I'm counting on. So I hope we get back to normal real soon. Have you heard anything about bluefin tuna? Have any of your guys seen them?
One of my friends saw them a few days ago, and it may have been the same pictures or videos you saw, but there's a few schools of them coming through the edge of the reef there and just outside of it. There's a color change one day, which I guess was right about a week ago, maybe 6 days ago. The sails actually did bite that day somewhat too. My uncle had, I think he had 7 on the catch-22 one day. Scott.
Ooh, good.
So then the next day they had, 1 or 2, and then Alex had one flag up today. But that day that color change was there. There's a couple of schools of bluefin seen, and then some of the boats did well. Some boats had 4 or 5 sails. I think one had 7. But after that, the last 3 or 4 days, it's just 1 or 2 sails here and there.
Yeah, the color change will bunch them together. There's no doubt about it. Well, Nick, as always, we appreciate a great report. And if my math is right, this time next week we'll be talking about 10 days of swordfish in a row, right?
No, tomorrow's my day off, so we'll see what happens.
We'll be at 9 trips in a row anyway. All right, thank you, Nick. We appreciate it. Look forward to talking with you next week.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Captain Nick Stanzik out of Alamorada. He's one of the lead captains there at Bud and Mary's. His family has had that place for a while, and whew, that boy is living in paradise and loving every minute of it. All right, we're going to swing on around toward the west just a little bit and see what our buddy Steve Dahl is up to. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing today, Rick?
Never better, Cap. Everything's good.
Good to hear.
I've had this hacking cough ever since I got off the plane from China, but other than that, no, I'm kidding. No.
Yeah,
don't.
right.
No, don't say that. But no.
I got to tell you, last 3 days I've gotten off the boat, and I feel like I'm getting debriefed. There's something about us fishermen. We always talk about getting away from everyday life, and it sure couldn't be more true with the current events of our country right now. And every time I get off this boat this week, I feel like the world has just changed in a matter of 6 hours. And, it's humbling. I was driving in today, this afternoon, a couple hours ago, and I'm a talker. I like to talk to my people, and I like to have a good time. And I've had these people before say, Steve, what? You're pretty quiet today. I got to be honest, with no disrespect. I had a great time with you all today, but, every time I come back to the marina, I just feel like the world is changing.
Yes.
And I don't know what we're, in a kind way, my customers said, this is why we just had to go fishing today. We're not, no one's canceling. And, I know we're all taking cancellations, and, I get it, but it's just, I love the culture that we have with this fishing brethren that, we all find solace in just getting away for a little while. And I really appreciated that after 26 years of taking people fishing. It just hit me real good on the way home. Had to share it with you because I know you probably think the same thing, and all of us are kind of going through the same stuff in our own rights. But that was a little moment I had today where I just, man, we're blessed.
Oh, yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Wednesday morning, about probably 7. Well, no, I can't see. I can't really run that far until I can see pretty good. Probably about 8:30. I'll lay those outriggers out and I'll drop those baits back, and I will not care one bit what is going on in the rest of the world.
It's great. It's great.
Yep.
But hey, let's talk fishing.
All right.
I've been fishing near shore, not to get away from crowds per se, or keep some distance, social distancing, but the bite's just been on. Those winds have finally subsided pretty much all throughout the state, and we're taking full advantage of it. And it has been fun. We have 3 to 4 foot kingfish on just about every single wreck and reef. They're free roam.
That's fun.
It's been bananas. And, the blue runners are everywhere. We got bait galore. I mean, it's just been a ball. And, if I had the sweet spot at 30 to 40 feet of water, find your wrecks just littered throughout the region, and you're going to find kings. Bottom fish while you're on these wrecks and reefs, too, because, action brings action. And we're catching kings with some serious regularity, and the bottom bite's been great. I mean, it's just, jackpot fishing. I think we had 16 different species today, just, simple bottom fishing wrecks and reefs, and obviously targeting, some of the bigger kings. But I'm seeing, 20-foot bay boats out there too.
Yeah.
It's not really bad. The offshore guys, Rick, I don't know if you like African pompano.
Oh, yes, I do.
You need to get down there because it has been great. I mean, the offshore guys are pulling in some just beautiful, beautiful African pompano. And in the mix, obviously, are our permit. And our permit are starting to come in, which is great. We usually don't see those till April and May, and we're starting to see those pop up. You're going to have to go a little bit of ways for the African pompano. I mean, those are kind of in that 50 to 70 mile range, which most of the hardcore grouper guys are going, that way anyway. But the other story is the red grouper fish. I mean, this week alone, I've probably seen 4 different boats come back with the smallest in their bag limit, 27, 28 inches.
That's good fish.
I mean, those are good, red grouper for our area. So it's been good. The trout fishing's been still fantastic on the inshore side, but we just really, these are the days you just got to take, the stretches, if you will, that you got to take advantage of just kind of exploring and getting offshore a little bit, near shore stuff. Like I said, 30, 40 feet of water. Obviously, travel plans are getting curtailed a lot this month, but if you got family or friends in town and you're not allowed back at work and you got to get out, definitely in our region, try these nearshore wrecks and reefs. They're not getting hardly any pressure whatsoever, and it's really easy fishing. I went through very little cut redfin herring today, and I went through about 250 shrimp in short order.
Oh, good deal.
It's not rocket science.
Any triple tail to speak of?
I've been looking, and I really don't know where they're at, to be honest with you, and that's got all of us kind of shaking our heads. We're just not seeing them. So we had one year like that before where we had it real hot and heavy, November, December, and parts of January, and then we had this like 6, 7, 8 week lull where we just couldn't find them. Everybody gave up on them, and then a couple of us stumbled upon them, and then it was back on until the end of May or the middle of May. So I'm kind of praying that that's going to be the case. The water's gin clear. I don't know if that's got something to do with it, but I don't know. I'm kind of scratching my head with that along with everybody else down in my region. So we're kind of trying to figure that out, but I'm anxiously awaiting their arrival again.
Yep, same thing with cobia.
We saw one today. We couldn't hook up on them. There were so many kings in the area. I don't know if they were invited to the party, to be honest.
Oh, that's cool. That's way cool.
But yeah, it's been good. I mean, all in all, nearshore, offshore, fantastic. Inshore, still doing good. Forecast looks good for the next week, so people should try to get out.
Hey, we've earned it. We put up with a lot of wind for a long time. One thing you can count on with Captain Steve Dahl, he caught kingfish today on Phoenix rods. That's because Phoenix Rods offers nearly 400 different models of rods for every species of fish. Known for innovative design, the very best components, and proprietary blanks, Phoenix Rods is the choice of professional, passionate fishermen who take their fishing rods seriously. The M1 Inshore lineup has you covered from snook to redfish to tarpon with 16 different models for your backcountry applications. The Black Diamond East Coast series offers 12 different models for the offshore fishermen, and they were specifically designed for Florida anglers. Check them out today at www.phoenixrods.com or visit your local dealer right here in Florida. Thank you, Captain Steve Dahl, and we will talk to you next week.
Sounds good, Rick. Be well.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalube marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalube full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalube marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Well, sounds like somebody ran off with all the triple tail from the 10,000 Islands. You know anything about that, Captain Greg Stamper?
No, Rick, that was not me. This entire week I've been way too busy catching snook, redfish, jacks, big black drum. I haven't even had time to go out there and look for those.
That's way cool. All that happening for Snook Stamp Charters?
Yeah, I most of the time stay in the back caves and the nearshore waters. But I got to tell you, the guys that have been going way out offshore have been absolutely crushing it. I've seen so many big fish come in this week. We'll start off with some of the cool things that you love, like the cobias. We've seen 30, 40, and 50 pounders coming to the fillet stations on a regular basis. So those fish are full speed out there. And another couple good things is they're limiting out on grouper very quickly. And, their bycatches are just African pompano that are like 30 pounds.
Wow. That's another thing that Steve mentioned to me, that he's seeing a whole lot of African pompano. Is that common for you guys this time of year?
Yeah, they're actually here a lot. They're here most of the time. You'll start seeing them coming in here and there when they get good days in January. They're getting out there way deep. So those fish are really deep out there. They're 130, 140 feet during that time frame. But what happens is they throw them flutter jigs down there. And an African pompano is basically the first thing that's going to eat when you get there. So you're going to get him first, and then you get to move on to your groupers and your other stuff.
The flutter jigs, huh? Is that like the vertical jigs like Shimano makes?
Yeah. They just flutter up and down, just work them hard, and you can be honest, you can probably outfish bait with those if it's the right conditions. So another cool part is the tarpon are here. So our nearshore guys, we have that in between the back bay and offshore guys. The permit bite has been excellent. There's a lot of fish that are anywhere from 30 feet of water all the way out to about 60. They're holding up. And the cool part is these schools have got hundreds of fish in them. And if you can figure out where they're going from and to, you can pretty much plan it out. The guys that have been doing that have done very well this week for permit. And these are the same guys that are pretty much doing the big tarpon right now, which are starting to show up more and more. Even today, I was fishing near one of our passes, and I saw several tarpon roll. So it's begun. The tarpon migration is almost here. And these fish are 100, 120, 130, 140 pounds. Big one.
That's big old trains there. Now, you talked about permit fishing, Greg. Are most of the guys doing those at crabs?
If you're going out there trying to use shrimp or clams or whatever the other thing is you want to throw, you're at a huge disadvantage. Those are just crab eating. Those things just love crabs. If you have the right crabs and the right tide, usually it's towards the end of the beginning of the tide. Those fish are going to just suck those crabs down, and that's easy pickings when you're on them. The only problem I can tell you is that there's going to probably be a Goliath grouper sitting underneath your boat waiting for you to get them close.
I'd hate that. I'd hate to lose a permit to one. When you're fishing them, the crabs, are you fishing them on a jig head or on a fish finder rig? How do you do it?
Well, there's two ways that we'll do it. If it's calm and it's the right stuff and those fish are all on the surface, you can see them tailing. It could be 40 feet of water and they'll be tailing. We'll free line them. because that means they're looking up, they're looking at every piece of weed that goes by, they're seeing if there's a crab in it. If they're not on that type of pattern, but you can pick them up on your side scan, then we can weight it a little bit. I use a lot of leader. I use 12 to 15 feet of leader, usually 30 pounds for me, a nice 1 or 2-aught circle hook, depending on how big I think the fish are. And I will just put a small split shot about 3-4 feet up my leader and just let it go back slowly to them. And that's pretty effective.
That's way cool. What a neat fishery. How about the big tarpon? How are they catching them?
Right this time of year, it's mostly crabs, but if you can get yourself a hold of a big pilchard or just sabiki a few threads or just throw your net once, I like to sabiki them. They stay a lot more healthy and they're a lot more fired up, and you don't need to catch as many and put as many in your live well when you do it that way. But it's going to be those 2 or 3 baits. That's the key right now. But some of the guys that are fishing up in Pine Island Sound, where these fish are just sitting in these deep holes, they're using catfish tails and cut ladies. Problem with that, if you use cut ladies, you're going to pick up some big, giant sail crabs.
Yep. All right, real quick before I let you go. I have heard from so many people the sail cats are good to eat. Can you confirm or deny that rumor?
I wouldn't. I've never tried one. I know people eat them. But I'm going to just go ahead and pass on that. I got too many of them. Like all these, we got pompano right now everywhere. We got all kinds of stuff. Like, why am I going to do a sail cat?
Because I'm going to tell you that your assignment for next week is to eat a sail cat so I can find out if I want to try one.
Yeah, you let me know.
Okay, Cap. Listen, Greg, as always, we really appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you next week.
No worries. I'll talk to you guys next week. Tight line.
Thanks, Greg. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest Florida report. Greg's report, of course, is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum. By Nosara Paradise Rentals. By Phoenix Rods. And by Young Boats. You want the best in flats, bay, and offshore hybrid boats? You need to visit youngboats.com. Now let's move up the coast just a little bit into West Central Florida and check in with Captain Ray Markham. Ray, how are you?
Wow. In between sneezing from the pollen and taking fish off, doing pretty good.
Well, let me tell you, I'm feeling really good this week. I had no idea I was so far ahead of my time. You know, back in high school and college when I would go, 2 years without a date, I didn't realize they didn't call it social distancing back then. I was just ahead of my time. That's all.
Well, thank God you're married now.
There you go. There you go. You can't walk into a crowded bar anymore. They can't exist. Here in Northeast Florida, they've declared no more than 50 people in an establishment at a time. How about that?
Well, they've done pretty much the same thing around here, too. I wish I could get all 50 people that are trying to get a hold of me at one time to spread it out over the year.
Yeah.
It's been crazy this last week. In between people calling to tell me that they're going to have to put their trip off for a few months because they can't fly down, or the people who are already here and looking at the weather and going, this is unbelievable. I want to go out fishing. And it's like, okay, well, it's like shuffling time, you know?
Sure. Well, I know you're busy, but tell us a little bit about your inshore and offshore fishing.
Water temperature running anywhere from 72 to about 76 degrees, depending on where you are. Nearshore Gulf waters, the beaches, guys are catching kingfish. They're catching Spanish mackerel, bluefish, and some scattered grouper. There's been a lot of hogfish caught over the last weekend and up through today. A lot of grunts. A lot of guys are not going out real far because they are kind of targeting combination thing. What few traps that didn't get pulled out of the water from the stone crabbers, because the season ended on Sunday, the guys are trying to capitalize on getting some triple tail. So they're running the beaches, hitting all of those crab pots that are still out there. There's a few of them still out there. A bunch of guys that are also doing pretty well while fishing right along the beaches where the swim buoys are.
Uh-huh.
Live shrimp's probably the most productive the guys are using on a small hook, like a number 1 circle hook. And jigs are working, and so is like DOA shrimp, artificial shrimp. And sometimes guys are putting them under a popping cork and not putting it deep, maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet tops, casting it up current or upwind, whichever is the stronger of the two. so that the bait will drift down towards the crab pot or the line that comes off of it, and they're catching fish that way. But people that are just starting to get out and shake off some of the old trolling hardware, they're doing really well with Spanish mackerel, and average is probably running around 20 to 24 inches, which is decent fish.
Decent fish.
Yep. The guys that are catching kings, they're relatively small, but not so much for this time of year, fishing inshore or near shore. Mouth of Tampa Bay has been on fire with them. There's been bait schools all around the Skyway, so the guys that are trolling in and out around there, they're doing real well with Spanish mackerel. The ones that I'm hearing that are getting on some of the deep water wrecks, 100 feet and better, they're pulling up some pretty decent size smoker kings. So you're looking in the mid 30s, upper 30 pound range. Inshore, oh my gosh. We're doing real well with redfish. I qualify that statement. There are pods of redfish in numerous areas around the west central area, but it's not like they're scattered everywhere.
Uh-huh.
When you get on them, you're going to be on them. And more than likely, the majority of the fish that we're finding are upper slot and over. There's been a few fish that have been in the slot, but right now it doesn't really matter because you can't keep them for the majority of the west central area. Guys are doing pretty well with snook. Most of the snook have been undersized, but the ones that are hammering the deep water scenarios around, I guess they're getting a few of them in the passes now, which is even early. But coming out on big mangrove points around deep cuts and things like that, where some of the bigger fish are. The trout fishing has been picking up considerably. This is the time of year, excuse me, that we're getting trout. Typically between March and May are some of the bigger trout times. The ones that I'm seeing, the majority of them appear to be full of roe, so that's a really good thing.
That is a good thing. Ray, you were talking about the bigger snook in deep water. What's a preferred bait for doing that?
Well, right now, it's still early for what the guys call white bait around here, scale sardines, filtered, but that probably is the number one bait. Typically, during the entire winter, the snook shift over to crustaceans. They'll get more crabs, and if they're in the backwaters, they're going to look for killifish. But as they come out of those areas, out of the rivers and the creeks and the backwaters and get out on the flat, they're starting to look for something a little bit bigger and a little bit more protein. So they're going to bigger baits, and primarily they're doing some thread fins that are hanging out on the lower end of Tampa Bay, some scale sardines, and believe it or not, guys are trying to catch some finger mullet and whacking them on that too. But on days where you don't have much tide, the ones that seem to be doing the best are doing it on cut bait. It's either cut ladyfish or cut mullet, and they're fishing either areas around deep cuts that go into some of the backcountry areas or creeks where those fish are coming out. So I think we're going to be at an early everything. It's going to be an early start to the spawn for snook, early season for tarpon. You guys have been reporting some tarpon. I've seen a couple down in the south end of the Tampa Bay where I've been working. The guys that are fishing the north end of the bay have even said they've seen a couple up there, which is real early for that. Guys that are fishing some of those bridges in the upper bay or Courtney Campbell Causeway, Gandy Bridge, Art Franklin, they're catching some black drum. Same scenario down the south end of the bay, Pinellas Point. There's been a couple of guys that reported catching some big black drum, 35, 40 pounds down there. This is the time of year usually when they'll move out on the flat to the clam bar, somewhere around there near the Skyway, and you can almost hear the doggone things half a block away, just kind of grunting and groaning and making all the funky noises they make this time of year. No complaints other than I need more sleep and I need to go take some more of that Flonase.
Okay, real quick before you go, it has always been my experience when the drum are drumming like that, and you can hear them clearly. I mean, it's everybody's heard it if they've drum fished at all. They generally don't bite as well when they're drumming.
They got Valentine's Day on their mind, and they're a little late for that, but they're sure early for another thing, But definitely they're in the mood.
Yep. I know what you're talking about. Here's my question for this week. I want to know what tackle innovation, electronic innovation, what advancement in the last 20 years has helped your fishing the most?
Okay, I've had about 5 or 10 seconds to think about that, and if I really had to ponder, I'd have to say it was braided line.
Yep.
I really think it's revolutionized fishing as we know it. It's much more sensitive. You can detect even the subtlest bite. The tackle overall has just really improved. But I would say one innovation I'd have to say it's braided lines, a no stretch line, ultra sensitive, super thin, longer distance cast. It's good for everybody except maybe the guys that are out trolling. The guys that are out trolling, particularly for kingfish, wahoo, things that really hit hard and take line really quick, especially the kingfish, even fishing with stinger rigs. If they don't have enough give in either the rod or the line, they're going to rip some hooks out of the faces of this fish.
Mm-hmm.
So those guys, they'll use a top shot of mono, maybe 30 to 50 feet long, just for that shock absorbency. That way they can tie in their double line leaders and, bimini twists and that kind of stuff, get a little bit more shock in there, absorbency. And I also, I talk to a lot of guys that fish deep for grouper. Most of them still prefer monofilament. But there's a bunch of guys that I know that they'll swear on a stack of Bibles that they catch more fish with braid on, deep water fishing for groupers. So I don't know, kind of a personal preference for a lot of people, I think. But if you take a look at the sales of all the lines that are out here, I think better than 50% of it now is on braid. So
I am glad I'm not in the monofilament business. I think you're absolutely right. Thank you, Ray. We appreciate it so much. We'll talk with you next week.
We'll catch you later.
Let's check on the Big Bend with the mayor of Homosassa, Captain William Toney. William, are you with us?
I'm here.
William, tell me about fishing in the Big Bend.
I tell you what, we've had some just the most fantastic weather for our areas late. It actually has got kind of a little bit warm, but the collegiates, we've had some of the largest Spanish mackerel yet of the season pass it through. Some of them 28 inches, some of them almost hitting 30. I mean, you better have plenty of jig heads out there on about 8-foot flats. And a lot of sea bass have moved in, sea trout, a few flounder and bluefish, jack crevalle. So this area I want to talk about is kind of, it's this legendary from off of Homosassa out here, and it is called the Bombing Range. And there's probably some viewers out there tonight that perked up when I said that. But back in World War II, there was an area known as, there's the foul area and the bombing range that was an actual bombing range off Homosassa. It's just laden with a lot of structure, natural rocks, some old craters and things like that. When that water temperature gets like it is now, hitting about 70, 71, 72, it just goes off. And you do these nice long drifts. And when I was, cutting my teeth fishing with my dad and my grandfather, flowering Florios, and also the Love's lures for the bomb out there. But nowadays, you can just get a single jig, a mirror lure, Little John, anything with watermelon gold glitter, bourbon, or glow, and get out there and just bend the rod, catch fish.
Golly, it's so funny you say that. I remember both of those lures very well. A flowering Florio and, of course, the Love's lures. The Love's lures were almost always rigged in tandem, weren't they?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And, and this is funny. I had talked to Mark Nichols a while back about coming back with a tandem lure, because a lot of times over the years I fished those flats out there around the Bombing Range. It's about midways between Homosassa and Christopher out there at about 8 foot of water, and have trout chasing the hook trout. And I was like, dang it, man, I better get me some of those tandem lures. When I was a kid and you had the tandem love lures on, you caught double trout and stuff, but now with the single jig, there was, you'd have a fish on with another trout chasing that. So I talked to Mark Nichols about coming back with a tandem, jig to get back in the market about it. And I used them. And what I found, I didn't have that big of success. And I don't know why, but then I started thinking about it. Back when I was fishing that time, I had the old ambassadors,
right?
The bait caster, and I think the retrieve was a lot slower than our modern spinning reels. So it was, I said, well, maybe I'll bring my bait caster and try it. And I started catching the doubles again. But I think what happened when, as trends change and things like that with lures, and our new spinning reels with a lot more faster ratio and all that sort of thing, I just think they outran how that double tandem lure worked. They still will work, but I don't know. The single lure is still getting it done.
Yep. You think for the tandem you need a slower retrieve is what you're saying.
Exactly, and that's what I was, back when the run lures were in, there was the old spinning reels. There weren't very many of them, like a Seal Star.
Right.
I don't know. There was a couple other old brands, and it was nothing but a naughty, just big old mess, curlicues. That's what we called it. And
right.
the ambassadors, they were king, and I could still pull one pretty good. But the retrieve was a lot slower on it. I think that was the catch to get that lure down there near the bottom, get those doubles, and like probably be right now if you real slow and are patient with it.
Yep. What's going on offshore?
Big mangrove snapper. Getting mangroves up to 15 to 20 inches. Free line and shrimp. Get them chummed up a little and then coming up on the top. I've seen some nice hogfish coming in at the dock. No amberjack yet. A lot of catching release jack grouper. But I would say at any moment, and if they haven't done it today, the cobia will be hitting that 20 to 30 foot range. And then from there, we'll start getting a little bit inshore. In fact, one of our local captains here, Rick Spratt, caught a deeper cobia on Sunday in about 10 foot of water out there in that foul area.
Cool. Well, that's the certain start of spring for you guys, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's just been nice. The wind's laid down. That's been our biggest kicker here. I would like a longer spring. It was a little bit warm out there today.
Well, I'm just going to be thankful it's been calm for a little stretch now, and maybe we'll get a few more days out of that. I'm counting on it anyway. That sounds awfully good. How about your sheep's head bite?
Now, our sheep's head bite has kind of waned out. We had a better bite in the Big Bend inshore area south, Creek River and Homosassa back in January and February. Now, there's still some captains out of the Cedar Key, Waukesassa Bay, and Steelhatchee getting them out there in deeper water, out 20 foot. A couple of our captains in Christopher were running out that way and getting a few late spawners. But the water temperatures got a little bit too warm for them, so they kind of dispersed and already had done their spawn.
Gotcha. It was a short sheep's head season. It wasn't necessarily a bad one, it seemed like, but it was certainly a short one. We've experienced the same kind of thing over here in Northeast Florida. Much going on with the trout and redfish?
Right now, like I said, the foul area out there in about 8 foot of water has been a lot of rod bending and good action. Now, for bigger trout and more size, over 20-inch fish, inshore on an incoming high tide, which we're going to have coming up pretty much midday all week long, getting toward that new moon, getting away from that full moon we had. We're first quarter right now. Bigger trout using the DOA 5.5-inch glow jerkbait, fishing those outside points and those rock piles. Now, redfish, they've been pretty tight little balls of them. Look for jumping mullet, western-facing points, been catching them on live shrimp, and also jigs and gold spoons.
That's what I always like about William Toney. He doesn't just tell us where they are, he tells us how to catch them. William, that's outstanding. I'm going to look forward to another report from you next week, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be here.
All right, buddy. Hey, listen, 50 people at a time. That's it. You can't get any big crowds over there at Homosassa.
No, we're pretty spaced out. We like to stay at least a quarter mile apart.
All right, you guys stay under control. You stay under control. We'll talk with you next week.
All right, bud. Have a good week.
Thank you, William. All right, it's time to leave the Big Bend area and Captain William Toney behind and move out into the Northwest, where the mayor of the Northwest province of Florida, Captain Kevin Lanier, is waiting. How are you, Kevin?
Hey, good, Captain Rick. I would not want that job for anything in the world, but thanks. I appreciate the compliment.
How'd you like to be president today? Do you think today was a fun day to be president?
It's easy for us to sit back here and criticize no matter who's sitting in that chair.
I think I'd rather be a broke fisherman like I am than be president of the United States.
Well, yep, I tend to agree with you. I spent 30 years in government, and I've much
enjoy fishing better.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Kevin, has there been any blood on that new World Cat?
Oh, absolutely, Captain Rick. The good Lord and Mother Nature took care of us and decided to give us a break. Figured we'd been beat up enough for the last month and a half. So we've had about 5 days of absolutely beautiful water and light winds, and we've been able to run offshore. We've loaded up on vermilion snapper. We're getting some triggers, but it's funny. Triggers kind of like deer. Once deer season opens, they're harder to find. Funny thing is, that's the way it's been. And we're getting the first trickles in of Spanish mackerel. We got some Spanish mackerel off the beach twice this week. And, they're typical early ones, sort of small. But lots of action. We've had 3 different groups get out with us this week, and everybody went home with a load of fish and big smiles on their face. That's what matters.
That's the only thing that matters. If more captains understood that they were in the entertainment business and not in the fishing business, probably be more successful as a businessman, wouldn't they?
Very true. Let me tell you what a captain friend of mine said. He's been doing this a whole lot longer than I have. He said, we equate success with a full boat of fish, whereas in reality, success is the number of smiles that are on the faces when they get off your boat.
Isn't that the truth? I learned a long time ago, if you've got a charter that's got 3 kids and they start reeling up fish on the sabikis so fast, and then, they're going, we don't even have bait on here. And look, you better go with a lot of bait that day. You may want to bait fish for 1 or 2 hours, whether you need more bait or not.
I agree. And you're right. Sometimes catching bait fish, catching pinfish, cigar minnows, just grunts or bait, those are the fun times.
Yep.
Especially when you got some young people on that.
Ain't that the truth? What else is going on? You guys, any cobia show up yet?
No cobia showing up. Water temperature is right about 68 degrees. As the sun got up, we got up into the 70s, but I still think we're a few degrees short on the cobia. Remember, I told you a couple of weeks ago that after 5 days of fog, that Spanish mackerel show up?
Right.
Well, today was the 5th morning in a row we've had fog.
All right, now, if I call you next week and you tell me that you clobbered the Spanish mackerel next Tuesday, I'm just not going to believe that. It can't be a correlation between fog and Spanish mackerel, can there, Kevin?
Well, what I think it is, I think it's the time of year where the water temperature is coming up, the air is still cool, so you start to get that marine layer in the morning.
Right.
So I just think it's that change of the season. And, the guys have been around here a long time will tell you, when we get into early spring, 5 days in a row of fog, the Spanish will be here. Lo and behold, the Spanish are here.
That's cool. That's way cool. That's a good thing to see. Now, will the kingfish be far behind them?
We're probably another month away for kingfish. We start listening down the beach for kingfish. They're getting a lot of Spanish off the piers down in Panama City and that way. So we know they're coming, but more fish are coming. We still got some sheep's head around here, and that makes for a fun day. There are a couple of sea bass spots that guys are picking up sea bass. So there's a lot going on over here. We've just been waiting on some good weather.
Good deal. What do you use for leaders for Spanish mackerel? I'm talking about your standard 20 to 24-inch fish.
I use a 30-pound fluorocarbon leader. I pretty much run that for my Spanish mackerel, my vermilions, and all that stuff because I find it's tough enough to get me 3, 4, 5 fish. We cut it off, change it out. But that seems to be a pretty good standard for me. I like the clear. I've had no complaints. And, of course, every once in a while you lose a fish, but I believe you're going to lose a fish every once in a while anyhow. We just clip it off sooner and we put another little piece on with our little silver horse spoon that we use, and lo and behold, here we go.
Yep, I'm with you 100%, and I'm glad you verified what I've always believed. I know I get more bites on a monofilament leader with Spanish mackerel than I do a wire leader.
I don't think you need a wire leader to go with Spanish. Every once in a while, we'll get a king that hits in there, we'll lose it, but that just makes you get more excited about what's going on.
A boat owner that I worked for many years said one time, Cap, if we're going to win every fight we get in, I don't want to play. And it's a perfect way to put it. Perfect way to put it. I can't thank you enough for a great report. Can we look forward to talking with you next week?
Oh, we'll talk again next week because we got another good week of weather. So hopefully we're going to get back out there. We'll see what the virus stuff, but we'll be out there.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
If the virus was out there instead of being on land, would you go anyway?
Probably.
Yeah, me too. Okay. I just want to make sure neither one of us were very smart. All right, buddy. We appreciate it. We'll talk with you next week.
All right, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks to Captain Kevin Lanier for a great Northwest Florida report. Sounds like things are moving there, boy. When that water temperature starts to hit that 70-degree mark, you can count on a whole lot of things happening. Kevin's report, of course, is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha, by Tournament Master Chum, by Phoenix Rods, by Nosara Paradise Rentals, and by Young Boats. You want the best in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. This just in, we have breaking news. In the Panhandle, even as we speak, Captain Tyler Massey is releasing a redfish. Do you have a confirmation on that?
Oh, yeah, he's in my hand. We're about to get a picture and then let him go.
I like the sound of that.
Another one hooked up.
Oh, no! He's hooked up again. Bring us play-by-play. How's he doing?
Here you go, bud. Hold that one. Here comes another one. Yeah, we got him flying in the boat right now.
I love it. I won't keep you. Tell me how it's been offshore.
It's been pretty good. So with nice weather this week, triggerfish, some vermilion snapper been biting, a few Almaco jacks mixed in.
Obviously, your triggerfish limit is one per person, so I'm assuming everybody's getting their limit.
Yeah, everyone's been doing pretty good on there. Everyone's been doing pretty good on the triggerfish. Yeah, we delivered out yesterday. We caught our limit of triggerfish on. We had 4 boats go out, and everyone caught their limit. We caught those pretty good, and then the sheephead have also been biting inshore as well.
Outstanding. All right, well, you're obviously tied up with a bunch of redfish. Have the redfish been good for you?
The first I've really tried. We were fishing in Santa Rosa Sound, fishing live shrimp at docks, and just come across one. We just probably caught 6 off this one dock in the last few minutes. But yeah, it's been picking up. You know, we got some warm weather. It's been consistently pretty warm, so that's going to be good, and it's going to keep getting better and better as we get closer to the summer.
Cool. And that's a standard operation for you to where you float shrimp under docks? Are you using corks?
Just a little Carolina rig or a little split shot on there. Just right underneath. Docks are about 2 to 4 feet deep, and just trying to get under the cover of the dock and see if we can pull the redfish out.
Gotcha. Perfect. Captain Tyler, I know you're busy. I'm going to let you get back to it. We so appreciate your report. It sounds like it's time to go redfishing in the Panhandle.
Yeah, we got another one on right now. Sounds good.
Go get him, Tyler. We're going to let Captain Tyler Massey go back to work out in the Panhandle where he was busy releasing redfish right and left. Even as we speak, he had one pull and drag on us. Well, that kind of concludes our trip around the state tonight. And gosh, we sure hope you enjoyed it. I tell you this much. If you did, we could really use your help if you would be so kind to subscribe to our podcast. Of course, it's all based on advertising, and we get more advertisers when we get more subscribers. So we hope you like it. We'd also like hearing from you. What do you like? What would you like to see added to it or improved? Maybe you want to get rid of me. That's fine too. But most of all, please check back with us next week when we come back with another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast.